Hello, everybody. We are live on Facebook for the Core Knowledge Charter School schedule listening session, and the session will be starting shortly.
Well, good evening. We'll go ahead and get started. It's right at 7 o'clock and want to be mindful of everyone's time. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Lauren McQuiston. I am a member of Governing Council and will be getting us started tonight. So thank you for taking the time to join us. And Steph, if you want to go on to the next slide. As we get started tonight, I just want to take a moment to introduce all the members of Governing Council. So these are the faces you'll see on the screen tonight. So, like I said, I'm Lauren McQuiston. I serve as president. Emily Shank is on the video tonight with us. She's our vice president. Georgia Gonder is here as our secretary. Micah Ladoucet is our treasurer. Bree Jacobson is the parent rep. Katie Kazabucky is a community rep. Hannah Falley is a community rep. And then you all know Ms. Krenz. She's our principal and also a member of Governing Council. And you know Ms. Bodecker, she's our curriculum coordinator and she is the teacher rep. So this group makes up Governing Council. And if you aren't familiar with Governing Council, we are sort of the decision-making body for the school, do policies, things like that. So that's why we are all here tonight. And just for some background, we're all parents. So everyone except Ms. Krenz and Ms. Bodecker are volunteers, parents, have students in the school. And then if you'll go to the next slide, I just wanted to take a moment to start us off with our core knowledge mission statement. This is something we read at every single Governing Council meeting. We start all of our meetings with our mission statement. And it's what we try to use as a framework for all that we do. When we come to Governing Council meetings, we often talk about taking off our parent hat and putting on our Governing Council hat and working to make the best decisions for our entire school. So our mission statement goes like this. CKCS is a public school option for parents, students, and teachers in the Verona Area School District where students develop strong learning skills and a broad base of knowledge through the use of proven educational materials and programs in a safe and structured environment. So that's sort of our guiding statement, how we try to make decisions and how we frame our discussions as Governing Council. And I want to take a moment and specifically thank all of you that are here tonight for the listening session. I want to thank all of you if you have already submitted feedback through the form that we sent out in the email a couple of weeks back. We appreciate all of your thoughts, ideas, insights. We know that this is a pretty big decision for our school, and so we appreciate you taking the time to share your opinion. And also, I want to thank you. I know many of you are involved in core knowledge. We are a parent-led school, and our school does not operate at its best without parents being involved. And I know many of you are involved in many different ways, be it volunteering in the classroom or chaperoning field trips or volunteering for different events like the color run that's coming up or our trivia night in the spring. So I just want to say thank you so much. We appreciate that all that you do to help support our school and make it as good as it can possibly be. And then as far as our what we're doing tonight, we wanted to take a few moments to just explain how we got to where we are tonight with this decision. So we'll give some background and explain where we have been and where we are now, and then also take some time to address some of the feedback we've already seen in the Google form that you have been submitting. And then we'll wrap up with any questions that you may have tonight. And so you should be able to put them in the in the comments of the Facebook Live. And then our Governing Council members are monitoring the comments. And then if you don't have a Facebook account, you can be watching this without a Facebook account, but you can't be commenting. So there's this tiny URL, and Ms. Krenz is going to give us more information about how that works. So I will turn it over to you, Ms. Krenz. Take it away.
Yep, thank you, Lauren. So as Lauren said, for our meeting tonight, we plan on being live here for the next hour, taking about the first 45 minutes to explain our background, where we've been, and also themes that have come from the feedback form that families have filled out. So thank you again, as she said. And then we'll take about 15 minutes at the end if there are any additional questions. As Lauren said, we have people watching the chats, both chats, whether it's the chat right there in Facebook and or this tiny URL. I am noticing that there's like something, at least on my screen, covering up. I don't know if it, but it is tinyurl.com/4387ZUJH. That will be on every slide. That's a Google form that you can enter questions in as well as being monitored. So if you don't have a Facebook account, you can go right to that Google form through that URL, which is being monitored. 1 second. Sorry, we had somebody join the other Google Meet, and we have a screen there showing them where to go if they joined the other Google Meet. So I just needed to turn them off. Okay, moving on to the next slide. We do then are going on to just a little bit of background that we wanted to address where we've been and kind of how we got here to where we're having this discussion. So in November last school year, I did actually put out a survey to our staff from me. That was an open-ended questions, just checking in after a couple months of the school year, of the 2023-2024 school year, just asking what was going well and what was a challenge. Very open-ended, not looking for any specific information. And the feedback that was given on that form was overwhelmingly from our staff, from our elementary staff, around the longer school day that they were experiencing and what they felt is the inequality of prep time. This is just some snippets of the feedback that our staff had given us and given me, and when I read it, knowing that I had so many responses, I felt it was my duty to bring it to some other people outside of just myself to help continue to brainstorm and think through what our next steps, what might we do about this, because it was very clear that our staff were feeling that in November of 2023. We had especially the themes in this survey feedback were themes of staff wishing to have more daily prep time, specifically after school when students leave, that you can kind of see there. So then I did bring it to Governing Council, and we had begun discussing and brainstorming and thinking through, not making any quick decisions, really wrestling with this challenge that we were facing. We did in our May 1st meeting have 10 teachers come to our Governing Council meeting and address Governing Council as well. And this wording that's on the screen is directly from our report from that meeting that we had 10 teachers attend, with a collective letter that was read during the meeting that's going to be on the next slide. It's also in all of our Governing Council notes. And the specific request from the teachers that came was to align our elementary school with the neighborhood sites for the 25-26 school year. We did have then, in that they emphasized the importance of having prep time at the end of the day without students present in their presentation to Governing Council. There is the letter is on the next slide. And as I said, that is also in all of the open board notes from our Governing Council from the May 1st, 2024 meeting. You'll see at the bottom that 10 staff did attend the meeting, but we did also have 17 teachers, including educational assistants, sign that letter. So it was more than 10 that they were representing. We did have every single one of our elementary classroom teachers except 2. So 17, 2 classroom teachers did not sign this letter. Moving on to then just kind of what the history of our start and end times here at Core Knowledge Charter School. Looking at the pre-COVID, we would say this was actually before 2017, with keeping the slides cleaner. Pre-COVID, it was a very status quo of what our start and end times were as Core Knowledge Charter School, being both elementary and middle together. that we had an 8:30 start time and a 3:30 end time on Tuesday through Friday. And on Mondays, it was 10 to 3:25. So very status quo. Every year, we had 7 hours on Tuesday through Friday and 5 hours and 25 minutes on Mondays. A reminder that our contract day for our staff is 8 hours. That's standard as our contract, their employment contract. So they had 30 minutes before school plus 30 minutes after school, and then time during the day as their prep. This was also the time when Cornellage was located in what was the current Sugar Creek building. And there were some differences at that time too, with there wasn't a slow start to the building. Students entered the building at 8:30. We had fewer students who ate breakfast, whereas now we have the majority of our students eat breakfast. And being that it was at the Sugar Creek building, what is now the Cornellage building was the high school. So it was a more centralized space where staff were all going to one spot. All the kids were going to one spot to get on the bus after school as well and to get picked up. So much more centralized right next to what was then the high school at that time. So that was pre-COVID world. Then when COVID hit, that was the 2020-2021 school year. That information is not included on this slide, as that year there were many different, I was not principal, but I'm aware, I was told that there were many different schedules due to different cohorts of kids coming at different times. So put in then starting since the 21-22 school year till now, you'll notice that it has not been status quo in regards to what our day is, when our start time is, what our end time is. We have had many different start and end times, and you'll see ranging from 2021 to now this year, the 24-25 school year, our day has increased. We have increased to 17 extra minutes every Tuesday through Friday, and we've increased from 5 hours and 25 minutes to 5 hours and 32 minutes on Monday. Question to why that might be, the answer, why is our day getting longer? It's because the middle school day in the Verona Area School District has gotten longer in the last two years. That is with adding late start Mondays every week to the middle school and high school schedule, which was not done before. And also just an acknowledgement of that our middle school days in the Verona Area School District have historically been very short and very tight in regards to PTI instructional minutes. If you remember, anytime we had snow days and we needed to add extra days or do extra creative things to add minutes, that was most likely because of the middle school schedule was the one that was not getting enough minutes in regards to the snow days. So you'll notice that we have increased the number of minutes in our day. The contract day has not changed. The contract day is still 8 hours. So our contract day is 7:45 to 3:45. So you'll see we have students enter the building at 8 o'clock. So they have 15 minutes now before students enter the building when they used to have 30. And our day ends at 3:45 for contract. The day ends at 3:32 officially for kids leaving the building. So just more of the day with kids there. It's now in our current location. So our bus pickup is also further away than it used to be. They have to walk with students further for the bus. We know that pickup is much busier where it currently is. It's not designed for elementary pickup as the old building location was. We have middle school students that come out of many different doors, which delays pickup. So the reality is then that teachers are waiting until about 3:40-ish to ensure that all students are safely picked up. So they are with students until about the end of their contract day, if not maybe 5 minutes before the end of their contract day. Moving on to say it in another way, just to show the information a little bit differently, but the same information. For this current school year, the neighborhood elementary schools, their staff have a contract day of 7:10 to 3:10, which is an 8-hour contract day. The kids are there from 9:20 to 2:25. And 7:30 to 2:25, whereas we also have an 8-hour contract day. We have 27 extra minutes on Mondays, and we have 22 extra minutes than the other neighborhood schools every day, Tuesday through Friday, which means that our Cornellage Elementary School students have an extra 115 instructional minutes each week. There are some positives to that in that they are with our staff a lot. But to remember also that the neighborhood schools are about 18 days over DPI instructional minutes. So we are way over the DPI instructional minutes that are required for elementary students. Continuing to move on, said one more way just to show that, so the contract days are equal for all Verona area school district staff. They work an 8-hour contract day. And what is the percent of the contract day that students are in the building and staff are then on duty to supervise them is more for our elementary student staff versus the neighborhood school elementary staff, and that has increased in the last 2 school years. A lot of questions came up about what has been done, and so the next 2 slides are going to show where we were last year when the staff were surveyed, and then the next slide will show what we have done. We have done a lot since this challenge first came to us, so we wanted to make sure to highlight and also where our 2.5-hour difference number came from and where we are currently sitting at on this day. So this is last school year. This is the 23-24 school year. You see that we have items in red, meaning for the 23-24 school year, or pink, that we had less prep time. This is prep time for our staff than what the neighborhood schools had at that same time. But there were some areas green where we had more, and then the total. So last school year, we had 12-minute recess around lunchtime, whereas the neighborhood schools had 15 minutes for lunchtime. We don't count lunch when teachers are eating, just the recess portion, because lunch is a contractual part of a staff member's day that they are not, it's not included in their prep. We have the same morning recess length. We have 20-minute morning recesses. We don't have those on Mondays, but we do have those on Tuesdays and Fridays. We do have less art minutes than had last year, less art minutes for our students, which was a little bit shorter than for our prep time. We have the same amount of music minutes, and last school year we did have less FIAD minutes. We had only 2 FIAD classes during the week, whereas neighborhood schools had 3. We have library, or last year had library as a prep for our staff, whereas the neighborhood schools did not, so we gained 30 minutes. And then we did have a few more extra minutes than the elementary schools in the beginning of the day. Our doors open 15 minutes before the start of the school day, so our doors open at 8, and school starts at 8:15. The neighborhood schools open their doors 10 minutes before the beginning of the school day. But you'll see where the majority of the difference last year came was in those after-school minutes, and that along with FIAD, the after-school minutes, in that after students leave the building, our staff did not have any more time before their contract day was up that would be counted as prep, because they were with their students till 3:45, especially last school year. With dismissal, they would be with their students until 3:45 every single day, or walking back from the buses. We were actually last school year below the handbook requirements for our staff. The handbook requirements were about at least 420 minutes per week. So we ensured that staff had 60 minutes of unscheduled time on our late start Mondays just to make sure that we met handbook requirements. We don't tend to use Mondays as a comparison for prep time because those are equal across the across the entire school district in what time is for collaboration and what time is for prep. So this
Stephanie,
go ahead, McKenna.
on the live chat, people are saying that they can hear like dishes being washed or something, and it's really distracting. I'm not sure where that's coming from. I said all of us are muted, but they're saying that they can't hear very well because of that. So I don't know if there's somebody in the live chat that's not muted, but they asked me to have you pause.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Marcy, are you around by any chance to be able to support with that?
Yes, I'm here. And everyone in this meeting, I'm just going to double check that everyone on here is muted. And if maybe everyone can just take a look and make sure that they're muted. And we should be okay if everyone's muted.
Okay. Please let us know if it continues, or hopefully if it stops.
My only thought would be if somebody has both Facebook and this open, if there's like some feedback going on that's going through on live, I don't know.
Okay, I close the Facebook. We'll see if that might have been it.
That would be my only possibility or thought. I don't know.
I just closed that. So this was last school year. This is the 23-24 school year. Thank you, Hannah, for interrupting me. And this was where we saw a major discrepancy in the number of prep minutes every week from the Core Knowledge Elementary staff to our neighborhood staff, and which is why we felt as a governing council we needed to discuss it and wrestle with it and try to do something about it. So we did. We made some changes, and this is where our 2.5 to 3 hour time difference. The hours, it's about 2.5 to 3 hours a week. That's where our 2.5 number has come from. We have done a lot of things for the 24-25 school year, which have greatly helped the situation with our staff. So we wanted to share that as well. So this is now for this current school year. The items that are highlighted in yellow are items that we changed from last year to this year. So we increased from 12 to 15 minutes for our recess. So we were equivalent for the neighborhood schools for our lunch recess. We increased our FIED. We were able to get more FIED allocation for staffing, and we were able to add a third FIED class into the week, which greatly helped because it gave us 30 minutes right there. We also added a PM recess, so a third recess in the day, but this is not every day. It's one time a week for every class. So every class gets 1/3 recess every week to give us 20 more minutes in the week. We are still so that helped a lot. It increased our number of minutes. We did also add what's highlighted in the bottom. We added additional counseling lessons in the school year, which is 30 minutes every other week. So we can't really count that in our weekly minutes, but it is every other week. So those weeks that we have counseling lessons as well, we're even closer. We're at 530 prep minutes in comparison to the 580 prep minutes from the neighborhood schools. On the weeks that we don't have a counseling lesson, we're about 80 minutes difference. We're at about 500 minutes versus 580 minutes. Where the differences are still showing up and why we're still different is we're still shorter on art minutes than the neighborhood schools. And once again, that time after school, because our prep day ends at 3:45, this year we're averaging that our staff are able to get back to their classrooms about 3:37-ish, so about 5 minutes after dismissal, that we have time after school, but not as much time after school. Hopefully the sound is better, so if you're able to see if anybody is saying yes or no. So we have closed the gap for the 24-25 school year tremendously, which is great news, and we are really happy about that. And we want to be open and honest about that the governing council then is having a challenge of, have we done enough? Have we made the gap much better? And now we feel good about the situation that we're in, and we're still thinking through that. We perhaps may say yes. We've gone from approximately 150 to 180 less minutes in the 23-24 school year to approximately 80 less prep minutes, or even on the weeks where we have counseling, about 50 less prep minutes from our school to the neighborhood elementary schools. My part is almost done. I just wanted to also address, just to ensure everyone is on the same page about the bus and how bus is connected in some ways to this, and how we're at our current state in regards to busing with our elementary students. So the Verona Area School District utilized triple loop busing for 2 years. So they had always used double loop busing, which is what we currently use. For 2 years after COVID, the Verona Area School District went to what was called triple loop busing. That was due to driver shortages and also COVID ripple effects and how many kids could be on a bus. There were many things that led to, for 2 years, there were triple loop busing. And this actually then made the high school have their own bus, which was nice for 2 years that the high school had their own bus. For the 23-24 school year, so last year, the Verona Area School District returned to the double loop busing as they had pre-COVID. And now that the Verona Area High School was in a different spot, that made double loop busing have a bigger impact than it had before. When the schools were all in one space with the old high school, they had the same bus space and all the schools got out at the exact same time. So Core Knowledge Charter School students, Badger Ridge Middle School students, and Verona High School students got out at the exact same time and went to the same central location to get on the bus. They all got on the bus and left. But now that the high school is in a new location across town, not very far, but still across town, and the high school has different start and end times than Core Knowledge and Badger Ridge, that has significantly increased the bus ride for our students, as families who have busers know, because they have to go over to the high school and wait at the high school for them to load. So that is, we feel that it is connected, because that would be one ripple effect of the change. Would be also that we would be with the neighborhood elementary schools buses for our neighborhood, for our elementary students. They would ride the same buses as New Century VAIS students and Sugar Creek students that are getting dropped off in that same area. So wanted to just make sure everyone was on the same page about the current state and the history of busing. So Lauren, I believe now it's your turn to go back to the questions and themes from what came up in our feedback form.
Yeah, thanks so much, Steph. Appreciate you just catching everyone up onto how things have changed over the last few years to get us to current state. Before I jump into questions and themes that we've seen from the feedback form, if you were a few minutes late joining, I just want to remind you, the faces you see on the screen are governing council, and then also in the bottom right corner of all the slides, you'll see that tiny URL. So if for some reason you're not able to leave a comment on the Facebook Live with questions or comments, you won't be able to click on that as a hyperlink, but you can copy and paste it or type it into your browser, and that'll take you to a Google form where you can submit questions. So if you're having any trouble putting a question in the Facebook Live comments, you can type in that tiny URL in the bottom right corner, and that will take you to a Google form where you can put your comments. So with that, we'll move on. We wanted to take a few minutes just to address some of the themes that we saw coming up through the feedback forms that people have already sent. So the first one that we have is it's been this way for so long. So there were a lot of comments about maybe someone has an older middle school student and an elementary student or multiple students somewhere in the K-8 system. And so there was a lot of feedback that our kids have always been on the same schedule and we want to keep it that way. And this was, prior, like Ms. Krenz talked about, prior to the 23-24 school year, our school day for our elementary students. So CKES is Core Knowledge Elementary. So the length for our elementary students and neighborhood elementary students were more equal, as Ms. Krenz laid out for us. And then just like she said, the days have lengthened a little bit each year to put us now where we have significantly longer days. And so one thing to keep in mind when we talk about start and end times is that they're always subject to change. So we are a charter school, but we are responsible to the district. And so we've been very fortunate to have the similar start and end times for many years, but every year it's subject to change as the district evaluates the needs of all the schools and all the students in the district. So that was one common theme we heard. The next one that we heard quite a bit was, what about keeping our start time the same and ending earlier? If you could go on to the next slide, Steph. Thank you so much. So this was an idea that appealed to governing council as well. So I think Steph mentioned this. She first brought this discrepancy in prep time and just all the ripple effects that have happened with our schedule. She first brought it to governing council back in December. So we have been talking about it and trying to troubleshoot and come up with ideas. So we explored this option, and as we looked at the total minutes, and if we were able to have core knowledge elementary students ride the same bus they currently ride to school, but then go home on the early bus with the neighborhood elementary students, it would actually swing our instructional minutes way too far the other way, that we wouldn't even be able to uphold our existing instructional model and offer recess, lunch, and related arts. So it would just put us at too much of a deficit for instructional minutes. And then the next logical question was, can our teachers come in earlier before school to prep? And this makes a lot of sense if we're considering that we're going to have the whole school start at 7:30. Can the teachers just come in early? But the trouble we run into with that is, again, with the contract day that Ms. Krenz has explained, is their contract day goes from 7:45 to 3:45. And so if they are coming in earlier, that's asking them to come in outside of their paid contract time. And that's another option that we asked about. So governing council has met with the district. We've had meetings with Dr. Clardy and Chad Weiss, the deputy superintendent, just exploring what options are available, what things we can do. And unfortunately, the district isn't able to lengthen the contract day of teachers. And so we know that many teachers do work outside of their contract hours to get the work done. And it's a common practice in education, but we want to be mindful of that and not specifically ask our teachers to come in outside of their paid contract time. And then another common thing that we heard was lots of people were asking, could we keep our same schedule but have an elementary only bus? And this is, again, a lot of this just comes back to, we are part of the public school district. And so we have to operate within the constraints of what the school district is able to offer us. And so while we would love to be able to do that, with the shortage of buses and bus drivers, it's just not an option. The district can't offer a unique bus route just for CKCS. So our start and end times are subject to the existing bus routes. And then along those same lines, another question was, would this new schedule mean separate buses for CKCS students? And I think we've said this already, but I want to make it clear, no decisions have been made. We're still gathering information. And so if our elementary schedule was aligned with the neighborhood elementaries, it would just mean that our students would ride the same buses as the students at Sugar Creek, New Century, and VAIS. Another common theme in the comments, whether it be a question or just stating facts, is that don't we already have 2 extra professional development days in our schedule? So if we have all this extra time, do we need prep time? And it's important to distinguish the difference between professional development days and daily prep minutes. So we do have 2 additional professional learning days for teachers that happen in November and February. And that's always subject to change, but that has worked well. So it's keeping it that way for now. But those days are specifically dedicated to professional learning to support our unique curriculum. So that is something distinctively core that makes core knowledge different from other schools is our curriculum. And so these 2 extra professional learning days have that specific goal to support professional learning around our unique curriculum. But then teachers benefit from regular daily prep time. So the daily prep time that neighborhood schools are having at the end of the day once students have left, that time is allowing teachers to reflect on the data they've gathered that day. So just looking at, what are my students getting? What do my students need extra help on? We didn't get through this lesson. We need to spend some more time on this topic. And so just allowing them to analyze and evaluate that from the day and make any adjustments for the next day. So that's kind of the difference between the full day professional development and from the daily prep time. They serve 2 very different purposes. And then when we think about why does daily prep time matter so much, if you think about what our teachers and staff are doing, the elementary teachers every day are prepping morning meeting, they're prepping reading lessons, math lessons, science and social studies, spelling lessons, extra support for for kids when they pull small groups together for kids that need it. So there's just a whole host of things that they're prepping every day for the next day. And then in addition to that, they're also grading, they're tracking data, they're analyzing data, they're working with each other to support students. So, a common thing for core knowledge is that our students may not have their homeroom teacher for reading or for math. And so that just the unique thing about breaking our students into smaller groups, and it just requires a lot of collaboration among colleagues. And like Ms. Bodecker will meet with teachers during prep time. So there's a lot of needs for daily prep time. So that's how the difference between this request for daily prep time and the professional development days break out. And then along that same lines, a lot of questions or a lot of suggestions we heard was, can core have more days off, like monthly days off or early release days? And so that's certainly an option that we explored and looked at was, could we do that? First, it would be only for our elementary students. Just as we have mentioned a couple times, it continues to be a challenge for middle school students across the whole district to reach those DPI requirements. And you probably remember in the last couple of years, towards the end of the year, we have to add a couple minutes every day or take away some late start Mondays or things to get enough minutes. So it would be only for the elementary students. But the biggest challenge we face with that is, again, with busing. The district wouldn't be able to provide buses for early release days. So while we would love to have like early release on Fridays or something to get our teacher prep time, it's not something that we can sustain because we can't offer transportation to students who rely on busing to get to and from school if we try doing some early release days. And then another theme that we heard a lot was, what else can we do? Can we add some extra recess? Can we add extra lunch? Can we put in a study hall? What other options have been explored? And Ms. Krenz talked about this and earlier that we have been able to make some changes. And I want to take a moment to give props to Ms. Krenz and Ms. Bodecker because they worked really hard. This was not really a governing council thing. This was a Ms. Krenz and Ms. Bodecker. Getting that third Phy-Ed class added, Ms. Krenz advocated for more for that additional class. They, with some retirements, they were able to rework and redistribute some of our educational assistant FTE, which is like full-time equivalent, or the educational assistant hours, to get that extra recess in, to add a little bit more time to our lunch recess. So as we talked about, it's made a difference, certainly has made up some time in our weekly minutes, but we're still below what the neighborhood schools are. So if you think about it, we're asking our teachers to do the same job as their peers with less tools to do it. So that's just a challenge that our teachers have to face. And then another thing is we look at what things can we add in, like can we have a recess? Can we extend lunch or put in a study hall? Is just keeping in mind that if our students aren't with their classroom teacher, they have to be with another teacher or staff member. And when we're looking at that, we also have to be mindful of safety and making sure we're adhering to staff to student safety ratios. And so if it was entirely up to governing council, we would approve, two FTE to hire other educational assistants so that we can run a study hall or an extra recess or things like that. But the fact is that we don't have any more staffing funds to add. So that's just a challenge that we face. So we have to figure out a way to make things work well with the staffing that we have. And then our next logical question is, okay, if we can't add staffing, can we have parent volunteers? And as I said in the beginning, thank you to all of you for the ways that you volunteer. We know that CORE has a lot of volunteer opportunities for parents and that many of you step up in many ways. But volunteers can't supervise a recess alone without a staff member. So it's a liability issue where we can't rely on parents to staff, to supervise recess or to supervise dismissal at the end of the day. We need to have VASD employees helping, at least monitoring the overall supervision. And then we know from what our teachers are doing right now that daily dismissal would take a minimum of 12 volunteers who are reliably available every single day to support students. And so I think we all know that we do our best and we try to step up and volunteer when we can, but I don't know that any of us are available to do that every single day. We all have other commitments and responsibilities, so it's not reasonable to think that we would be able to find consistent volunteers who can come every single day to help alleviate some of the need for our teachers to be doing dismissal. And then this was another very common theme, was that the later start time is better for kids. And I don't think anyone on governing council disagrees with that. We agree. Like I said, we all have children at core, and for this year, we all have elementary students, and next year we will all have at least one elementary student. So it's impacts us and our family life, just like the whole school body. So it's not a decision that's being taken lightly, or that we are a decision that would be made and we could just say, well, I don't have to deal with it. It doesn't impact me. So that's it's been weighing heavy on your governing council members, on your fellow parents. But we also know that every elementary district, every elementary school in the VASD other than CKS starts at 7:30. And so if it's something that we move to, it would not be a challenge unique to our school. It's what, we have over 1,000 other students in elementary schools across the VASD that are doing a 7:30 start time. So, and these start and end times are determined by the district, and many factors go into these decisions, as the district has to weigh the needs of all students, K through 12, all the buildings. If you think about all of the different schools, the elementary schools, the middle schools, and our high school. So the district has a pretty tall task to balance all the needs of everyone. So we agree, we want a later start time, but we also have to evaluate and make sure that we are choosing what's best for the current needs of the school. And then another common theme that we heard along with that was we would need an after-school program to support with the earlier end time. And I can tell you that we are actively in talks with the YMCA about an after-school program. Ms. Krenz has been talking with them and working to try and set something up. There's also many programs offered within the community. And then currently we do have core knowledge students who participate in an after-school program through the YMCA. And that program happens at the New Century building. So each day after school, a staff member escorts our core knowledge students that are participating in the YMCA program over to New Century. So that will be an option, having a YMCA program. We don't know the details of it yet, but as soon as we have the details, we will share those out with families if it's something we need to do, if this is a decision that is made and we go this route. So, and even if our schedule stays exactly the same, we're still in talks with the YMCA about how can we get a program at our school so our students don't have to go to different buildings. Because in the past, when we were at the old building, students would, in the YMCA program, would be bused from our building to Country View is where it was at that time. So no matter what the outcome of the schedule is for next year, we're in talks with the YMCA trying to get a program inside our building. And then the last common theme that we heard was we appreciate having our elementary and middle school students on the same schedule. And that has been an amazing privilege that many CKCS families have enjoyed over the last several years. If you came to a tour that I led, I probably talked about it because I thought that was a huge selling point, and I still do. But it's a privilege, but it's not necessarily a guarantee that we have. And we have to evaluate the big picture and see if it's still the best path forward for the entire CKCS community. And just to give a little bit of history, in the past, CKCS was spread out over several buildings across the district and didn't have a permanent home. So having all of our K through 8 students aligned on the same schedule and in the same building is actually, in the history of our school, relatively new, and it's been an amazing privilege. And we continue to make adjustments to meet the evolving needs of our school community. And so some things we're still working on right now is gathering feedback from families. So if you, like I had mentioned, if you have questions, put those in the comments on Facebook Live or use that tiny URL and put them in the Google Sheet. And then we're also we're getting feedback from our teachers about the changes that we've made from last year to this year, how that has impacted them, and just their thoughts on, is that enough? Is it, do we still need to make changes? So we're certainly still evaluating the needs of the school, the needs of our learners, of our teachers, of our families. And then one last thing I wanted to point out was on the right-hand side of this slide. We did just pull the start and end times for some of the other school districts within Dane County just for comparison. And you can see we're pretty similar in that all of them, elementary starts in the 7 o'clock hour, then the middle school, and then the high school. Definitely our elementary school starts earlier. So, and this is our neighborhood schools. This is not Core Knowledge's schedule. But just for comparison, we're pretty similar with what other districts are doing as far as start and end times. So that concludes the part of just talking about addressing the feedback that families have already sent. And we definitely want to take some time to get into any questions and themes that are coming up in the Facebook Live chat and in the Google Sheet if you're using that. So what we're going to do now is the rest of our governing council members are just going to, they've been monitoring the chat and they are looking at the questions, and we're going to pull out some of those questions and try and address them. So I will mute and let whoever's ready to take the first question go ahead.
Thanks, Lauren. My name again is Georgia Gonder, and just want to say thanks for all of the comments and your attendance here tonight. So we're going to address some of the questions and comments that have come up. One of the first ones was talking about the end time and dismissal process at the end of the day. So the school end time is listed as 3:32, but students are out of the building by 3:15, and the question is, where are those 17 minutes counted? So our K through 2 students start the dismissal process at 3:15, and then grades 3 through 5 start their process at 3:20, a little bit later because they have related arts classes that go until 3:20. So that earlier dismissal time allows for that staggered release so that not all of our Core Knowledge and Badger Ridge students are leaving the building at the same time. So students or teachers are still supervising kids out, at the dismissal. So it's not that they're necessarily gaining any additional prep time by dismissing earlier. We're just making that dismissal process hopefully a little bit smoother. And then they're still out there supervising until all of their students are picked up. I believe other schools also have a staggered dismissal process, but I'm not sure exactly what that looks like.
Thanks, Georgia. I am Emily Shank. I thank you again all for being here tonight. I have a couple of questions that came in that I will try to answer. So one of the first ones is, if students are on the same buses as other elementary schools, wouldn't that make the same length of time as it currently is because they are still stopping at other schools? No, the buses would not be stopping at other schools. Our core elementary students would be loading on the buses at the same time as New Century, VAS, and Sugar Creek students. They all kind of load in that busing loop that we are currently using right now, so that wouldn't really affect the amount of time it's taking them to get on a bus. And then another question that we have is about, what is the optimal amount of prep time our teachers would like to have every day? If this number was more concrete, we could have a starting point to work off of. Yes, we are in the process of gathering teacher feedback and data to get maybe some more specific ideas of how much time would be beneficial, and then also if the changes that we have implemented so far, is that beneficial for the teachers? How is that working for the teachers? And then we also just know that when we compare the schedules to the neighborhood schools, the teacher prep time between us and the neighborhood school sites is just not equitable for our teachers.
Hey everybody, I'm Micah. I have a couple questions I can answer. We have one about instead of the doors opening at 8 a.m., can the students come in at 8:15 to have a little more time in the beginning? That's actually something that we could consider and talk about. So maybe we can bring that back to the next governing council meeting and discuss that. We implemented the slow start a few years ago. I admit that that was before my daughter was there. But just feedback from staff is that it just the slow start kind of supports a calmer, more supportive entry into the building for all the students. But that's definitely something that we can discuss. And the next one I have is, where do the extra hours for the FIAD and recess come from? We, as the elementary school, since we follow the middle school start and end times, we have more instructional minutes than the other neighborhood schools. So just, it does come away from the instructional time that was last year, but basically when we add PE, it's just kind of aligning us with the neighborhood schools. We just have more instructional time overall because of the longer school day.
Hi, this is Ms. Krenz. I can address, there were two questions that were asking about staffing funds and how are staffing funds raised, as well as are we able to hire more paraprofessionals or educational assistants to cover morning times? So a CKCS can't independently add more staff. We don't pay staff from CKCS. They are district hired, district funded staffing to pay a person, to pay an hourly wage and benefits and all of that. So our staffing funding is given to us from the district in how much people cost. People are the majority of cost in any school district. So we are not able to get more funds without requesting them. It was a major request over multiple years to get increased FIAD minutes, because then we have an extra staff member to have more of those FIAD minutes. So we are not able to independently hire more staff without us paying them, and we can't afford that as a school on a loan to pay them their benefits and their salary. And so then once again, to add more recess, we were able to take a current staff schedule from a retirement and think creatively on how we use the current staffing funds that we had to add another recess from an educational assistant. But we don't, as core knowledge, have the ability to add more people in. We can't pay them. That comes from central office.
There's another comment in the chat about just the data from the CDC and American Academy of Pediatrics that's showing an optimal start time for elementary age kids between 8:30 and 9, and that later start times are directly correlated with higher academic and behavioral outcomes. Like Lauren said, I think we all agree that 7:30 is a very early start time. The start and end times are out of our hands as a core knowledge school. I think regardless of whether whatever decision we make, those concerns need to be directed towards the larger school district, whether it's a school board or other greater school district administration. I agree. I think that 7:30 is early, but again, I think there probably needs to be feedback to the district about that before changes can be made. It's a lot of it depends on busing, as Steph mentioned, between bus routes and finding bus drivers and getting kids to the elementary schools first and then getting kids to the high school without pushing the high school end time back too late for after school activities and kids who need to get to work. So I think it's a pretty complex problem, but I would encourage people to send feedback to the district about that as well.
And then kind of going off Georgia's comment a little bit, there's another question about if we've talked to the busing company for students about if they're able to handle the change, if we would move forward with the different start and end times. And yes, our central office has run the bus numbers for adding extra core elementary kids to the bus schedule, and they are able to accommodate the number of students.
sorry, I think there's one question earlier too about who is asking for this change and is it teacher led? It was feedback that was gathered from the staff and our teachers, as staff kind of reviewed at the beginning of the presentation. Our teachers did cover to governing council with their concerns and a request for change.
There is one question, asking to speak to shifting teacher contracts to mimic the other schools. Believe that would be 7:55 to 3:55. So a contract day for neighborhood schools is 7:10 to 3:10, and ours is 7:45 to 3:45. So they're both 8 hours. They just start their day earlier, end their day earlier. Students end at 2:20. So there's, or 2:25, I apologize. So then there's from 2:25 to 3:10 for neighborhood schools. That is time that staff are on their contract hours, their contract 8 hours, but students are not in the building. Our day ends at 3:32. The contract day for our staff ends at 3:45. So just the less time without students there.
Are there any other questions that we can address that we haven't answered yet? If you have any more questions, please drop them in the comments or drop them in the Google form with that tiny URL. We'll take you to that form. There was a question, aren't all minutes in the school day supposed to be instructional per DPI? And this question was related to our dismissal starting so early. And the reason we're able to start a staggered dismissal is because we have so many extra instructional minutes. So we are, because we align with the middle school, our elementary schools, the neighborhoods already have, I think Steph said 18 days across the school year. If you add up all the minutes, it totals 18 days of extra instructional minute. And then core has 115 minutes each week more than that. So we are able to have this staggered release and staggered dismissal because we have so many extra instructional minutes. So we're not dipping below what is required by DPI.
A couple more questions that came in. One was when will we be making this decision? Governing council will be deciding this start and end time potential change at our next meeting, which is October 9th. We need to get this decided and this vote done so that we can have the information that we need going into our outreach months. So starting in November is when we start our outreach process for potential new families that might be interested in coming to core. So we really need to make sure we have start and end times figured out for next year so that we can give accurate information for any potential new families at our outreach events.
Yeah, and we want to give families plenty of time. We want to give teachers, family, the district, you know, this is not going to impact just core knowledge. The central office is going to have to make a lot of changes and updates. So we want to make sure that the decision is made in plenty of time for everyone to plan. So this would not go in effect until 25-26. So no changes would happen this school year. Go ahead, Emily, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. That was a great additional point there. That's also great information. And then another question was, will the presentation be available if you couldn't watch the whole thing? Yes, we'll be sending out a link to this live stream that you can finish and watch, and we will have our comment form kept open so that you guys can continue to add comments as you see fit, or if any other questions come up.
There was also a question, can the letter from the teachers be shared? And yes, it is. If you go to the governing council minutes, it was in our May minutes. It's attached to the minutes. So that's on the vackcs.com, the parent leadership website. All the minutes are posted there. So you can go to the governing council agenda minutes and then go to the May meeting, and the letter is posted there. Well, we are right at 8 o'clock, and we want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to join us. Thank you for all the feedback, the comments, the questions. As Emily mentioned, we will be voting on this at our next governing council meeting. Those happen the second Wednesday night of every month, and they're held at the Town of Verona building out on PD. So those are open meetings that people are always invited to come to. So we'll make a decision there, and that will be communicated out to families. So if you can't make it, don't worry about it. The information will be clearly communicated. If you have more thoughts, questions, or concerns, please continue to utilize that Google link that we sent out in the September 12th email. We are monitoring those comments and suggestions and questions that have come in. We keep looking into those and seeing, is this a possibility? So we are making every effort to address prep time with as little impact on students and families as possible. So we welcome creative thinking and suggestions and ideas, and we will explore those. And so we're just so thankful to be a part of the school community. CORE is a very unique student body. We are a very tight-knit community, and we're so thankful that all of you took the time to come out tonight and ask questions and to listen and to learn. And so please keep sending in feedback, questions if you have them, and we will be making a decision at our next meeting, and that will be clearly communicated out to families. Steph, is there anything I'm missing before we wrap up?
No, I just echo everything that you said, Lauren. You know, this is not an easy place for us to be in as a governing council, but it's also just in some ways heartwarming to know that we are able to come together as a community to share information, to see what we can do best to support both our staff, our students, and our families.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.
And remember, no school on Monday.